Clarke, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
We're going to talk today about your film Distant Echoes, which is a bit of a distant echo in itself. A movie made roughly 20 years ago. Was it 1999?
22. Yeah, 22.
I mean, this is fascinating to me because this is what I love about Reveel'd, that it's a platform where old movies can have a new life. I've seen that even with films that I made roughly 10 years ago that I have on the platform. And it's just, I love that we live in an era where streaming is going to give indie film that, I imagine 20 years ago to release this film, it was sort of DVD, theatrical or bust. There was no YouTube yet. There was nothing, right?
Yeah, there was no platform to really show it. Yeah.
So you had, I mean, obviously there were less films made every year, so you had a bit more of a fighting chance. But I think it's super exciting that there's these new formats for things to come out. What are your thoughts on that? Like when you think, oh, this old catalog work that I have, there's now a place for it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very proud of my old movies, and I love having them seen by an audience. I mean, Reveel'd's been I guess besides YouTube, the only real place it's ever had an audience or been seen by anybody. But yeah, I love it. I love having the old stuff cared about and shown and not forgotten about and dusted off, taken out of the closet.
How many films have you made in the interim between then and now, roughly?
About 8 or 9. And one of them was a feature film. And then about 8 shorts after that. And music video, a couple little projects like that.
I want to ask you, I mean, first, tell us about Distant Echoes. What is the premise in your own words?
Distant Echoes is a pretty simple story. It's a last man on Earth type of science fiction parable fantasy, but a guy that just hates humanity, is sick and tired of bad people, terrorists, murderers, and he just wishes one day, I wish everyone would just disappear. And then, of course, he wakes up one morning and they have disappeared. And then he slowly starts to regret that wish and wishes he wasn't alone and becomes kind of a bum and an alcoholic, and that's where it goes from there. So it's a pretty not terribly unique. I mean, we've all seen Last Man on Earth type movies and Twilight Zone episodes and Omega Man, stuff like that. But then one of the movies that actually really inspired it was The Quiet Earth from 1985, an Australian film, which I thought was pretty exhilarating.
Well, I like it. You have a very introspective and existential look at that situation versus the survival aspect, or then there's some horde of creatures out there somewhere. You've done some interesting things with it. So you talked about where the idea came from. Now you shot this on video equipment at the time, so you were sort of in that revolutionary guard, because 99 is also the mark of the Blair Witch Project, where famously something shot on a Hi8 camcorder ended up becoming one of the highest grossing movies of all time that year, right behind a new Star Wars movie and some other things. So what was it like to be part of that kind of, like, because there had to be a little bit of was this something you were trying to get made on film, and then just budget wise eventually you have to say it's more important to make the movie on what you have available versus continue to wait?
Well, I had made a couple of 16 millimeter student films in college in the late 80s, early 90s. But, I mean, that's all I had. I had a friend who had this SVHS camcorder. It was a big monster camcorder. I had to wear a huge, belt for the power and all that, and separate VTR unit, I think it even had. But that's all I had at the time, was video. I hadn't done any films, like I said, since college, and I had made some other video short films. One of the things I guess I'm kind of proud of is I feel like I was a little ahead of my time. I don't think a lot of people in 1999 were making, short films with video. They were using film. We didn't have any of that access. So we, I don't know if you probably noticed the movie has a widescreen letterbox aspect to it. I mean, it was shot in 4:3. And then I letterboxed it in post. I was really going for that widescreen film look.
I know it well, right through the around, what was it, 2003, like the digital revolution came out where the DVX 100 could do, but even then the original version of it was 4:3, and you letterboxed it yourself, and then God forbid you wanted to shoot at a 2:3:5 aspect ratio, and then you're losing half the image, and then right around the corner everything went 16:9. I'm definitely familiar. I used to shoot on Super VHS. That's where I started, and I thought, I'll have a kinship immediately with Clarke when we get on the show, because that's where I come from. We're in this iPhone revolution now with filmmakers, and it reminds me of the time that everybody first was able to get away from film and do these sort of things on SVHS or mini DV, and it does really feel like that's the cycle, I guess, every 20 years, because independent film really started to hit a stride with film in the 80s. Then the early 2000s, things went to digital video, and now you've got I guess the 80s was because of the birth of home video. You had more people making 16 millimeter shorts. I just think that's an important thing for filmmakers to do, is to always try to look at where things are going and be up with the technology, so that you can have a bit more creative freedom and get your projects made. Have you experimented with iPhone or doing anything else like in the modern age, or where do you find yourself shooting your projects these days? What formats?
No, I'm not a big fan of iPhone filmmaking. I mean, I like to have the control of, rack focus and all that other good stuff, and shallow depth of fields and whatnot. But I've always found a DP here in San Diego, lots of great DPs to work with that all have. I mean, I've worked with Red once, and I've worked with a number of DSLR cameras. But yeah, I'm not into the. I mean, the short films that we make, we put a lot of effort into. We treat it like it's a film, like it's got a budget, which it usually doesn't, and really go all out and plan it to death and make it as best as it can possibly be. So I'm not into the quickie little, cell phone movies and type of thing. I really want to make it, I guess, as Hollywood as it can be.
Nothing wrong with striving for the absolute best. Now my burning question I mentioned before I told you I had a burning question before we started the interview. You have an Oscar-nominated composer that did the music for this film.
No, I don't. Mark Isham. No, back then I didn't have composers at my disposal. I would just get a CD or whatever, or records back in the day, and digitize them and use the song. So yeah, that music is from Blade, the soundtrack.
Okay.
The whole thing is Blade, and I got away with using it on YouTube. They didn't put any restrictions on it, and it's been that way for 22 years. But I guess one day, or actually, I have a couple times re-edited some old movies that had an existing John Williams or John Carpenter or some kind of score like that, and did it with a real composer. I should probably do that with this movie if I really want it to be more legit, I guess. But yeah, that's what I used, soundtrack from Blade.
I mean, if you're going to go with stock music, I guess go with the best possible stock music that exists. I was going to say, because in 1999, he composed one of my all-time favorite scores, which is October Sky. I don't know if you saw that movie, the early Jake Gyllenhaal movie.
Yeah.
Just beautiful music. And I was trying to wrap my head around what favor is he your uncle? Like, how the heck did that come together? But mystery solved.
Yeah, I wish.
If you were, what is something that, looking back on this film, I don't know when the last time you watched it is, but remembering everything it went through to make the film, where you were at in your career, what would, filmmaker Clarke in 2021 go back to 1999 and tell yourself about something to do differently, or maybe there was a smarter or better approach to filmmaking?
Well, I did just look at the movie yesterday, and it's slow, and it's long, and it's ponderous, and it definitely would have been a faster pace if I'd made it today. I think it's fine as it is, as a product of its time, but I guess, yeah, I mean, I would like to almost get my hands on it and recut it a little bit and speed it up. I mean, it really is one of the most ponderously slow movies I guess I've ever made. I've done plenty of action and some sci-fi and, stuff with chase scenes and whatnot, so this was a different movie for me. But I would just say, you're doing the right thing. This was my first movie shot on, non-linearly, shot and edited on Premiere.
Mm-hmm.
Everything before this was always, the tape-to-tape editors. I don't know if you're old enough to remember editing
I
on VHS where you
I am with a controller unit that often
uh,
didn't want to work, and
yeah,
every edit was hopefully your final edit, so you didn't have to go back and do it again.
and you couldn't go back to a previous scene and stick something in there. It was just had to be done
Oh,
in order. So
you could insert a shot over a shot, but that was
the
it. You
same
know, it
length,
was
the same
finite.
length.
Yep.
Yeah, it was
I feel
very
like coming from that background though, you are a better editor because you have to really commit to every decision versus now you save multiple timelines, you've got all kinds of versions, you can go back months later and tweak scenes and rearrange things that you didn't, there was, or maybe it's just a sense of like, I guess it's like being a painter a little bit. Like once you start applying the paint to the canvas, there's only I'm not a painter, but I imagine you can't go over it too many times
hmm
before that's it. That sort of
yeah.
analog version of editing was a wildly different time.
hmm
What's the number one lesson you think you learned making this film or in that era of your filmmaking that you still carry today?
That's a pretty good question. But like I said, it was the first time, lot of firsts for that movie. So I learned an awful lot. And then I still am a Premiere user today, and I've learned how to use After Effects. But back then I had to just come up with innovative ways to make things work, like to have the people, like we would go out and shoot city scenes where the crowded city in Stamford, Connecticut, and then take the shot into Photoshop to get rid of the people, bring the mat back in, and have the person walking down the street all by himself in a very busy street. So I learned a lot of. That's pretty much where I cut my teeth on all visual effects that I still use today. And Premiere can do some decent stuff here and there, but I've gotten pretty good at After Effects with certain things. So yeah, just learning. I think the best answer would be that I learned how to be innovative. A lot of the things I did on that movie hadn't been done, at least not by me, or by probably the average indie filmmaker. But I don't know if you remember the scene where there's some people that are playing cards and they're transparent, and
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
that was a huge deal at the time to accomplish that and make it work. We had to lock down the camera, make sure none of the chairs moved when they got up, because otherwise you'd have a double chair exposure and
Yep.
things like that. And today that's just a rudimental easy thing to do and all that. But then
Well, I
it was
remember in that era, all my friends were making like their first lightsaber battles and had figured out rotoscoping, and either
yeah,
by doing it frame by frame in Photoshop or
yeah,
learning the basics of After Effects and how to put a motion blur onto it so it looked legitimate. But yeah, that is the era that computers caught up to where it leveled the playing field. Incredible. As long as you were willing to put in the time and develop your talent at those tools, you could do everything that a Hollywood studio could.
yeah.
And it got to the point where the computers that they were using were the same computers that everyone else owned in their house,
hmm
which was just a phenomenal time period to think, okay, now it's possible it's just, I might not have the same render farm and the same power to render this out, but if I can walk away from this for a weekend and render it out, I can do the effects.
yeah.
Uh, do you have other films of yours on Reveal yet?
I got about, I think, five, maybe six, much newer ones. So this is the oldest one. After this one, there's one from 2008. Everything else is going to be from 2012 to the just last year. So, yeah.
Are there any comparisons style wise, story wise, or are there themes and styles of shooting that you just are your style that you keep revisiting or reusing amongst all those films?
I mean, I've been told that I guess I have a style or whatever. I'm not sure about theme wise. I mean, a lot of them, they're almost all science fiction themed. A lot of them have a twist, M. Night ending for the most part here and there. And a lot of them are, I guess a lot of people have told me they like to watch them twice because they see things they didn't see the first time, a lot of clues or whatever to the surprise ending or whatever it is, a twist ending. But yeah, mostly science. I mean, Distant Echoes is a science fiction fantasy parable, and I've pretty much done all science fiction movies since then. All the ones in the Reveal would have a science fiction element to them for sure. Theme wise, that's hard to say. They're pretty all kind of different to me.
I guess that's a different question then. Do you feel it's important for filmmakers to sort of use their voice in telling stories to put a message in their films, or is it just simply okay to make pieces of entertainment sometimes?
I definitely like both. I mean, I'm a big fan of movies like Aliens, for example. There's not really a message there. It's just a fun action, crazy movie. But I do like a lot of serious movies that have a message to them, for sure. Distant Echoes has a message to it if you dig into it, I think. And yeah, I think that's important. I guess I like a little of both. I mean, I like to entertain and be Hollywood and blow things up, and I also like to be able to have a message that, something that people can take away from it rather than just think it was a fun time at the movies or something.
Last question. One piece of advice that every beginning filmmaker needs to know that's going to save them time, money, and effort.
Loaded question. Well, I've always taken everything very seriously and planned meticulously, kind of, almost anally about it, and just kind of take over my life. And, I think you need to write something, especially if you're kind of new, that you can do. When I wrote this movie, I made sure that we could actually do it and go out there and shoot the scenes in the streets and erase people in post. I didn't try to take on anything I wasn't going to be able to do. So yeah, as a writer, when I write my own stuff, I'm looking at locations that are available and places and things that we can accomplish and not reach too high. I don't think at first, although you can reach pretty high with visual effects these days, but make something that you can actually do and get it done in a year or two, not have it drag on. I've known so many people that just talk about their film and it never gets done, or it takes forever and ever. Just get it done, get something done, get something in the can that you can work with and be proud of. That's about it, I suppose.
It's the there's what's that famous shoe company that has a slogan along that line? So, just get out there, just get out there and make it. Is that what their slogan is? I don't want to get any copyrights slaps on this video. Clarke, thanks so much for joining us. I really enjoyed your film. I'm happy that I found it on Reveel'd. I might not have seen it otherwise. And I think that's my whole point to everybody. If you're out there watching, you're not part of watching Reveel'd, Reveel'd.net, a wonderful showcase of all kinds of short films, features, documentaries, and it's 100% free. It's a streaming service you haven't heard of, but now you have, and it's your fault if you're not watching. Clarke, thanks again for joining us. Yeah.
I'd love to come back for talk about some other films next time, some newer stuff.
I'm sure as we get into a second and third season of Reveel'd, see how I'm bidding for my job down the future. We will do that. You've got a wealth of content to bring back and discuss.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Take care.